friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah and I make videos about mixed media art and journaling. Special shout out to my Makers Club members who are getting this video a couple days early. You can join my Makers Club and get that perk and several others at the link in the video description. So a thing that's been happening in my life lately is that I have been working full-time again for the first time in a really long time, and it's been a big adjustment, and it's made journaling even more of a coping mechanism and a form of self-care than it already was. It already was, but now it's like 10 times more important for that purpose. So over the last month and a half since I started work, I've gone through kind of an evolution in my journaling and realized that I wanted more color. And so I spent a lot of July just doing straight journaling, which is all fine. Nothing wrong with that. But then I slowly reintroduced watercolor very gradually, got back into my accustomed style. And then even that wasn't enough for me. I really wanted some colorful backgrounds. And so as we got into late August into September, I went and got some markers and started working with those. But of course, markers are streaky and it just wasn't quite the organic, flowy look that I was going for. And so I spent a little time doing that. And then I figured out another solution that I will show you in a little while. In the meantime, I'm going to finish this little journal flip for you, and you can see how nicely bright and saturated my pages have been getting lately. It's been a real outlet for me. When I come home after a 10-hour shift and I don't have the energy to do anything else artistic, at least if I make a spread in my journal, I feel like I did that much for myself, you know? So that's where my journal's been at. I've been really enjoying that process, and I will demonstrate it for you later on in this video. In the meantime, let's talk about supplies. I go back and forth between this art toolkit pouch and this pouch from Hynamo. There was another brand name for this that I can't remember. Oh, it's a Lee-Hit pouch. They're almost exactly the same size. I love the color of both of them. I usually prefer the feel of natural fibers, and this is that nice high quality cotton canvas from Japan, which I spilled wine on like you do. But the thing about this one is that even though it's about the same size as the art toolkit, because these pockets don't have dividers except for this one right here, you can actually stuff it with a lot more things. And so when I want to carry all the things, I use this pouch. And then when I want a little more function with these spine loops and with this paracord handle that I just added yesterday, that's when I use the art toolkit. So inside of this guy, everything's very snug because there are so many divided pockets. So this is really crammed as much as I can make it, which is not very much stuff for me, but it's enough to get by. I've got a water brush as always, mechanical pencil, white gel pen. This is a Tom Studio Lumos Duo. It's actually half of a Tom Studio Lumos Duo matched with a Tom Studio Lumos Mini so that I could have the two-tone look. That's loaded with waterproof black ink in 2 different tips, which I will also demonstrate later. Some scissors. These guys are banker's clasps. These are the best way that I've found to hold my traveler's notebook open while I'm working on it. They are the least likely to slip off, and they take up the least amount of room, and they work in concert with this music book clip. Over on this side, this bag holds my Swedish dishcloths that I use for cleaning my brush, and they themselves need to be cleaned very bad. I've got an ink syringe for refilling my water brush. My watercolor palette is inside an art toolkit as well. I've got 10 colors in there at the moment, and I use those 10 colors for 90% of what I do in watercolor. Sometimes I will bring out my bigger art toolkit folio palette that has a larger selection of colors, but for the most part, those 10 can handle everything. I've got 2 traveler's notebook clips in here for when I take photos of my spreads, because they look a little nicer than the banker's clasps. In here is a kneadable eraser and a glue stick. That is the supply clip kit. My fountain pens are in here. This is a Galen leather pen case. And I've just put up a couple of my pens for sale, so I'm back down to 6 pens. The expensive ones are here and the cheap ones are here. I love them all equally though. Inside my TN, I also have half of a clear zip pouch, the card half, the traveler's notebook pouch, which I just cut in half to use these separately. These are the stencils that I use all the time. I've got a triad template from Art Toolkit in here for making circles, and a couple spare pieces of tracing paper that sometimes get thrown in as ephemera. And then there's this guy. Every time I bring this out at a journaling event or at a pen show, or even if I just go cafe journaling and I have this with me, people stop and they're like, what is that? This is a Swiss Army medic bag. And if you've seen the Galen leather medic bag, it is based on this, but I find that the original is more functional for my purposes. And it originally had a thick divider, leather divider in this section that made this unusably small. So I took that out, I restitched it, and I added elastic and a little piece of leather to hold everything in place in what is now a bigger compartment that fits a lot of stuff. So my stuff is Canon Selphy QX20 printer. I still also have a Canon Ivy that is a much more manageable size for travel, but I have traveled with this one and I intend to travel with this one again because the photo quality is unmatched in any printer of its size. I have a Pantone dispenser for mini post-it notes that I actually use for my washi tape as well. I've got 3 colors of Uni 1 gel pens. I have a mini book light that I use when I'm not journaling under a massive key light. I've got a mini calendar that I've really enjoyed using this year, and I just reordered one for 2026 because I like having a piece of ephemera to put down on every page, even if I haven't collected ephemera that day. I've got the other half of that clear zip pouch, and this just has random ephemera and stickers in it when I am in the mood to use them, which isn't super often. I'm just not a sticker girly. And then finally, this is the solution that I found to my color problem. These are mini water brushes, which are filled with fountain pen ink. And then inside is also in our toolkit demi palette, and I just use that for mixing those together when I want different colors. So I'm going to demonstrate how I use those in my spread. Let me put all this back together. And the great thing about this tray that this medic bag folds out into is that when I'm working and when I'm in the zone and I don't want to stop and properly put my things away, I just toss them into the tray. And that keeps me from spreading across a whole work surface or a table when I'm at an event. keeps all my stuff contained, keeps it from rolling away and going off the table and all of that. The other thing this is great for is that when you pair it with a clipboard or with this board, which I made, I did this on a laser cutter. I bound a leather spine to it, and the leather spine has some elastic like a traveler's notebook, so you can actually slip a booklet as large as 8.5 by 11 in here and paint with that with a nice hard flat surface. But most of the time lately, I've just been using it to make the equivalent of an old-timey portable writing desk. So my traveler's notebook can sit open on that. Voila. It makes it sit at a really nice angle for working on my lap or on a tray table in front of me, like on the couch or in bed. I have done both of those things and it works great. But for our purposes, since this is a video, I'm gonna find an unobtrusive place for this to be, if such a thing exists, and I will just journal flat on the table. So I'm going to go into speed mode while I get started on this spread and do a little narration of my process. And I hope you enjoy it. But this is how my clip setup works. Oh, the other thing that's in here that I should tell you about is a pencil board. It's actually 2 pencil boards taped together around the edges with a piece of translucent waxed paper, release paper. And I think this was for making diamond art. That's what it was marketed for. But I use it because it still allows the grid lines to show through, and I can tape down washi tape, or I can stick down stickers that I want to save or labels that I peel off of something throughout the day, and it can sit on that release paper until I'm ready to use it. And you will see how this works with my art toolkit in just a little while. But I keep that tucked into that craft folder that goes around my regular insert, and then my music clip also gets attached to the craft folder so that I don't mar my insert cover. Oh, wrong clip. I'm out of order. All right, I'm going to switch over to speed mode. I'll see you soon. My first step on spreads like these is to add the date using my stencils. I got these stencils from Do Not Microwave Craft. I really enjoy doing this method of adding the date even though it's redundant when I use my calendar pages, because this is one more opportunity to add color later on. And I'm using the fine liner side of my Tom Studio Lumos Duo pen that's loaded with waterproof diatramentus document black ink. Lately I'm really into bold black outlines, and until now I've been using gray ink or brown ink. I think I was a little afraid of black. Now here's a trick I picked up from April Penguins Creative, who demonstrated clipping an art toolkit palette to her pencil board to paint in a traveler's notebook. My pencil board was a little floppy the first time I tried that, so that's why I have 2 pencil boards taped together, and there's actually a metal ruler inside of them for a little extra support. And I've used that method standing up with my journal in my hands, and it worked great with my art toolkit, especially the pocket size. Demi size, of course, is going to be light enough, no problem. Folio size gets a little heavy even with the reinforcement inside. I know I said I used these 10 colors in my art toolkit for 90% of what I paint, but right now I'm demonstrating using 2 colors that are not in my art toolkit, and one of those is Monte Amiata Raw Sienna from Eventually Everything Mixes, and then I'm mixing that with Winsor & Newton Smalt Blue because those 2 colors neutralize beautifully. They're also really granulating and quite thick in pigment quality, and so they tend to run across my page and pool in interesting ways. I like mixing them on the page as much as I like mixing them in the palette. And I chose this particular raw sienna because I've painted this subject with this color before. They're tamales. They're made by the same lady every time I've painted them, and I've gotten them at basically the same event every time. This time, though, the tamales were different. These are like open-faced tamales, and they don't feel like they're quite as made with love. And tonight's dinner of reheated tamales was kind of a bust because they weren't like properly wrapped, even though there was plenty of corn husk. I'm a little disappointed in the tamales lady, but whatever. Anyway, I'm incorporating the same colors I used in the painting up in my date at the top, which is something I love to do to help hold the page together and distribute that color across all of the surface. So the eye is drawn to all of those places and it feels cohesive. And then I'm coming back in with my Tom Studio and adding more bold black outlines using the brush tip. So I'm on the other end of it right now, but that same waterproof black ink. With my art toolkit triad template, I'm going to trace a circle just as kind of like a miniature background, almost a halo behind the tamales. And now I am mixing up some of that smalt blue color using my fountain pen ink inside of my brushes. The great thing about using water brushes full of fountain pen ink is that I can treat them as droppers and drop ink directly into my mixing palette and then use my water brush to paint with them. Or I can paint directly with the pure color when I want my primaries on the page. And I'm using fountain pen ink for these backgrounds because I could go in and paint with watercolor to get that color on my page, but then I wouldn't be able to write over the watercolor because the pigment would make my fountain pen ink from my pens spread and look funky. Believe me, I've tried. So the nice thing is that when I do those backgrounds with fountain pen ink, the ink that I write with looks great on top of it and doesn't have that spreading problem. I've added my calendar page and I'm coming in with gel pen. If you've watched my mixed media videos, you know that little stitch lines, dash lines, topographical lines, those come up a lot in my mixed media, and I've started incorporating them into my daily journaling pages as well for a little extra visual interest. Then I'm bringing in a couple of those miniature translucent post-it notes just to, again, following the rule of 3 and just kind of drawing the eye around the page, just adding a little extra pop of color. And at this point, the only thing left to do is to pick out a fountain pen and write about my day. So that is my basic process and the template I follow for my daily spreads, and I really enjoy this. I feel like I've gotten it about down to a science by now, which means it's probably time to reinvent it and try something completely new again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is, and I'll be sure to report back to you when I know. Until then, thanks so much for watching. See you next time.